Well, good morning. It's Saturday, September 11th, and we have gathered for our morning devotion. And today's devotion is called No Difference. We can't ignore the brutality found in many Bible passages, from Deuteronomy 7 to Leviticus 25 to 1 Samuel 15 to Psalm 137 and 49. We hear that God, or that the Lord, actively commands or blesses actions that we would call criminal against humanity. Many religious scholars have assumed that because the Bible makes these claims, we must defend them as true and good. That approach, however, is morally unacceptable for a growing number of us, and unfortunately we have another option. We can acknowledge that in the mind of the originators of these stories, God, as they understood God, did indeed command these things. We acknowledge that in their way of thinking, divine involvement in war was to be expected. We can allow that they were telling the truth as they best understood it when they found comfort and reassurance in the vision of God who would harm and kill to defend them, help them, and avenge them. We can try to empathize, remembering that when human beings suffer indignantly injustice and dehumanization and violence, they naturally pray for revenge and dream of retribution against those who harm them. Without condemning, we can at least understand why they saw God as they did, knowing that if we walked in their standards, we would be no different. But we don't have to stop there. We can turn the other voice to the biblical library who, in different circumstances, told competing stories to give a difference. And we would say better of God's vision. And so this one's rather different. So he's saying, with the Israelites, when they had all of that going on, that's how they understood God. God was going to be with them during war. God was going to be with them in their trials. God was going to help them to subdue the land. Now, I guess some of that is true, but, he's saying that's how they saw God. That is what was expected of God in that day. So they wrote those stories in that way. And for us, 4,000 years later, maybe that's not the way we see God. Maybe we see God more as an act out of love or out of peace. And it's not that God has evolved, it's our understanding of God has evolved. Maybe God truly wasn't involved in this. Maybe God was saying, here is your land, go live on it. And they acted in that way, and they expected God to be a part of it because that's what they expected God to do. But maybe, Brian is getting at here, maybe God just gave them the land and said, go and take it and do what you need to do to survive. And God was not a part of that vengeance. God was not a part of those wars. God just gave them the land, and they did what they thought was right, which was expecting God to be a part of it. So different understanding of God back then versus now, maybe. I don't know, maybe that's a good explanation. Maybe it's not, I don't know. But there's something different. The way that we see God nowadays is very different. We don't see God as a vengeful God. We don't see God as the one who's going to go out and defeat and battle in our ways. We see God who's going to offer us love and peace. So my question becomes, how do you see God? How do you see God in these stories of Old Testament violence? How do you see God even now today? Go and ponder those questions.